Welcome, everyone, to our roundtable on the mesmerizing journey of David Bowie. His legacy is vast, spanning music, fashion, art, and beyond.
And that's without even touching on his revolutionary impact on fashion. Bowie wasn't just ahead of his time. He was crafting the future with every outfit.
It extends far beyond that. His science fiction themes practically predicted the complexities of modern identity and technology.
Absolutely, Mick. His exploration of gender fluidity and queer identities carved out spaces that didn't exist in mainstream culture at the time.
While I agree with the points being made, let's not gloss over the fact that Bowie was as much a product of his time as he was a pioneer. The cultural and musical backdrop of Britain played a critical role in shaping his artistry.
True, Lenny, but his genius lay in how he took those influences and projected them into something entirely original. Bowie's multimedia approach was revolutionary. Speaking of originality, his fashion was more than just clothes. It was a challenge, a statement. Bowie's fashion was his armor and his artwork.
But don't forget the narrative Bowie constructed around himself. His personas were not just for show, they were an integral part of his storytelling, exploring futurism and identity.
And through those personas, he made it safer for countless others to explore their own identities.
Indeed, Bowie's life was a canvas of continuous transformation, pushing boundaries and challenging societal norms. We have a rich discussion ahead of us. Hal, while we delve into Bowie's artistry, it's crucial we critically examine his influences and the context in which he created.
Exactly, Lenny. The context enriches the narrative, but doesn't detract from his individual genius. Without Bowie, the landscapes of music, art, and fashion would be far less vibrant.
Thank you all for setting the stage for a spirited discussion. David Bowie's impact is undeniable, and it seems we're in for an engaging exploration of his life and legacy. Let's dive into the incredible musical journey of David Bowie, a figure who redefined what it means to be an artist in the music world. From the 60s to the 2000s, his transformations were not just artistic choices, but declarations.
Absolutely, Hal. Bowie didn't just change his style, he challenged the very norms of music and gender representation with every album. His genre blending was a bold statement against the rigidity of musical labels.
But let's not forget Amelia. It wasn't just about breaking norms for the sake of it. British music, punk, glam rock, electronic, Bowie was at the heart of these movements, influencing them with his vision and ingenuity.
It's the visual aspect, though, where Bowie's music videos served as an extension of his artistic evolution. It wasn't just the sound, it was the sight of Bowie that captivated audiences. His videos were a realm where his musical transformations gained a vivid, tangible form.
I'd argue his evolution was even more profound than that. Bowie's music, especially in the early years, carried sci-fi and futurist undercurrents. Those weren't just genre shifts, they were glimpses into entirely different realities.
I get where you're coming from, Mick, but focusing solely on the sci-fi aspect minimizes the impact of his fashion evolution. His visual presentation was groundbreaking. It went hand in hand with his music, each influencing and amplifying the other.
True, Izzy, but let's circle back to the essence. His fearless blending of genres. This wasn't just an artist trying on new costumes. It was a profound exploration of identity and expression.
While I respect the blending of genres, I think his British music scene influence was paramount. Bowie provided a soundtrack to cultural shifts, embedding his music in the psyche of a nation and beyond.
Lenny, his influence did reach far, but reducing it to a national impact overshadows the universal language he created through his visuals and sounds. Bowie's art transcended borders, speaking to the global human experience.
Speaking of transcending, it's that leap into the cosmic and futuristic themes that set Bowie apart. His musical evolution wasn't just about changing sounds, but about transporting us to different dimensions.
And let's not underestimate the power of fashion in that transportive experience. Bowie's visual boldness was as transformative as his music, each feeding into the other for a holistic art form.
Exactly, Izzy. Yet at its core, it was Bowie's challenge to musical and societal conventions that left a lasting legacy. His dedication to evolution and transformation is what truly defined him.
I can't deny his broader impact, but I maintain that his contribution to and influence on British culture and the music scene specifically were his most definitive impacts.
See, I feel we're all circling around the same truth here. Bowie was a multimedia icon. His music was just one facet of a larger diamond.
Clearly, Bowie's musical evolution is as multifaceted as the man himself, sparking a wealth of perspectives. His ability to weave sound, vision, and identity into a singular artistic expression remains unmatched. Moving on, let's delve into Bowie's undeniable impact on fashion. Izzy, kick us off, please.
Bowie was a fashion icon, period. His iconic moments, from the Ziggy Stardust era to the Thin White Duke, weren't just about clothing. They were about making statements, breaking norms, and inspiring countless designers and artists, myself included.
And let's not overlook the crucial role his androgynous styles played in challenging gender norms. Bowie's fashion was a rebellious act against the binary concepts of male and female, which was revolutionary.
True, but I think his influence on British fashion, in particular, is sometimes overstated. Yes, he was a trendsetter, but the British fashion scene was already vibrant and eclectic. Bowie amplified what was there, but he was not the only influencer.
I have to disagree, Lenny. Bowie didn't just amplify, he transformed. His personas brought theatricality to fashion. It wasn't just about wearing a dress or a bold suit. It was the entire presentation, the character, the story behind it. That was Bowie's unique contribution.
And let's not forget the strong ties between his fashion and science fiction themes. Bowie's outfits often seemed like they were plucked from a distant future or an alternate reality, which has had a profound impact on how we visualize sci-fi.
Absolutely, Mick. But I think we're missing a layer here. Bowie's fashion wasn't just about the future or androgyny. It was a form of communication, a visual language that complemented his music. His fashion and personas were layers of a broader narrative he was constantly weaving.
Jazz, that's an excellent point. His fashion and personas were indeed a narrative tool, but they were also a mirror, reflecting and challenging societal norms. He invited his audience to question and rethink their perceptions of identity and expression.
Right? And his bravery to present those radical ideas in such a public way paved paths not only in the world of fashion, but also in the broader cultural context.
I'll concede that Bowie had a unique talent for blending fashion with performance art in a way that was groundbreaking. And yes, his impact on stirring conversations around gender and identity through fashion was unparalleled.
It's also important to note that sci-fi itself often explores themes of identity, transformation, and the human condition. Bowie's fashion choices represented an exploration of these themes, effectively bringing the speculative into the tangible world.
And yet, despite all his transformations, Bowie's essence remained palpable through each persona. That's the hallmark of a true artist. His fashion sense was as much a part of his artistry as his music.
It's clear Bowie leveraged his appearance as yet another medium for his art, pushing boundaries and challenging norms in the most visible way possible. Whether it was through androgyny, sci-fi, or sheer theatrical flair, his impact on fashion continues to resonate profoundly. Let's dive into the enigmatic world of Bowie's alter egos. Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane. These personas are not just characters, but Bowie's exploration of self and society. Thoughts?
I find his use of alter egos groundbreaking, especially for gender fluidity. Bowie presented a spectrum where gender wasn't binary, but rather a galaxy of possibilities. It's a powerful statement.
While I agree with Amelia on the impact of his alter egos, I think there's more. They're a bridge to literary and cinematic characters, showing how intertextual Bowie's work was. He borrowed from everywhere to create something entirely new.
And let's not forget the artistic genius in how these personas were visually presented. It was about the music, yes, but also about the spectacle, the message, the psychological exploration. Each alter ego was a different lens on Bowie's psyche and our collective consciousness.
Amelia, Mick, Jazz, you've made some good points, but aren't we romanticizing it a bit too much? Weren't these alter egos also a clever marketing ploy? I mean, Bowie was a master of reinvention to keep the spotlight burning bright.
Lenny, while marketing might have benefited, reducing Bowie's alter egos to mere tactics is too cynical. These personas opened up crucial dialogues about identity and self-expression. They were more than just a bid for attention.
Jumping in beyond the gender discourse and psychological aspects, Bowie's fashion through these personas pushed boundaries. It wasn't just about the music scene, it was a cultural shift. Fashion became a form of protest, of declaration.
But let's not forget, the sci-fi element in his personas added a layer of futurism that spoke about society's trajectory. The man wasn't just playing dress-up, he was critiquing, forecasting, questioning.
True, Mick. Bowie's alter egos weren't just characters, they were a dialogue with the future. But Lenny does have a point about the marketing aspect. Yes, it's reductive to say it was all for show, but it's naive to think Bowie didn't understand the commercial appeal.
So it seems we all agree on the multifaceted significance of Bowie's personas. They were at once a personal exploration and a broader cultural commentary. The genius lies in the balance between personal exploration and understanding its broader appeal.
Absolutely. It's the duality of Bowie's work that's fascinating. I guess my skepticism stems from how these personas are sometimes idolized without acknowledging the complexity behind them.
And it's that complexity, Lenny, that has sparked endless discussions. Bowie didn't give us answers, he gave us questions. Questions about identity, society, the future.
Exactly. This conversation proves the enduring impact of Bowie's work. He used fashion, music, and persona to start debates that are as relevant now as they were then. Despite our differing views, we can agree Bowie mastered the art of conversation through his artistic expressions. Each persona, a different story, a different question. That's his legacy.
Well argued, everyone. Bowie's personas, complex and controversial, continue to challenge and inspire. They're a testament to his genius, a genius that compels us to question and explore the very fabric of our being. Let's carry this critical eye into our next segment. Let's shift our focus a bit to Bowie's broader contributions beyond just his music. His acting career alone merits discussion. The man who fell to earth, anyone?
Absolutely, but not just acting, Hal. Bowie's influence in the visual arts is monumental. He blurred the lines between pop music and high art. His collaborations are legendary.
While we're on the topic, let's not overlook his venture into internet and digital art. Bowie was a pioneer, embracing the digital age long before most artists even knew what it was.
That's true, Mick, but it's his painting hobby that often gets overshadowed. Bowie's paintings reveal a different layer of his genius, a very personal glimpse into his psyche.
Genius, yes, but let's not romanticize too much. His acting roles were hit or miss, let's be honest. The Man Who Fell to Earth was brilliant, but some of his other projects were less so.
Lenny, you're underselling his impact. Every fashion designer today owes a bit to Bowie's daringness. His visual art collaborations inspired my entire career.
And don't forget, his acting career and foray into digital art were brazen moves that challenged traditional career paths. He was redefining what artists could be.
Amelia has a point. Bowie's audacity to explore and express himself across mediums was revolutionary. His venture into digital art especially showcased his forward thinking.
Still, his contributions to sci-fi and futurism through these mediums were profound. His digital experiments were far more than just side projects. They were visionary.
Visionary, perhaps, but hit or miss in execution. Not every Bowie painting or digital sketch is a masterpiece. It's important to critique, not just praise.
Critique, sure. But remember, Bowie himself was less about perfection and more about expression. Every brushstroke, pixel, or camera shot was a part of his ever-evolving persona. Exactly, Izzy. Bowie's persona in his art was just as vital as in his music. He lived his message of constant transformation and exploration.
It seems we all agree that Bowie's contributions, be it acting, painting, or digital art, weren't just sidelines but integral to understanding his creativity and influence.
His bravery in expressing gender fluidity and challenging norms also permeated these realms. Bowie didn't just sing or act, he used every medium to question and explore identity.
Fair, Amelia. His influence across disciplines did indeed challenge and change norms. But as critics, we shouldn't shy away from discussing where he could have pushed further.
True, Lenny. Bowie's multidisciplinary approach does invite a spectrum of critique, and it's clear he left a complex, multifaceted legacy that we're all still trying to unpack. Let's delve into Bowie's pioneering legacy within music videos and multimedia. Jazz, kick us off?
Absolutely. Bowie wasn't just making music videos, he was crafting narratives, experiences that defied the norms of the time. Take Ashes to Ashes, for instance. That video was a visual feast that pushed the boundaries of what music videos could be. It's a cornerstone of multimedia art and music.
I have to jump in here, Jazz. The fashion in Ashes to Ashes, that Pierrot costume, became iconic. Bowie's approach to fashion in his videos was as groundbreaking as the music itself. He blurred the lines between stage costume and high fashion, influencing not just musicians but designers as well.
That's true, Izzy, but let's not overlook the futurism aspect. His video for Space Oddity, sure, it looks a bit quaint by today's standards, but back then it was revolutionary. It set a precedent for sci-fi and music videos that we can still see echoes of today.
Mick, while your point on sci-fi elements is spot on, I think there's a deeper layer to it, especially in the portrayal of characters and identities. Bowie utilized videos as a medium to explore and present complex identities, well before it became mainstream to do so. He was pine only in form, but in the messages he conveyed.
Amelia agreed on the identity exploration, but let's not sugarcoat everything. Not all his works were without flaws. While he did pioneer some videos in retrospect, can feel a bit disjointed from the messages of inclusivity we champion today.
Fair, Jazz, but even those moments of discord are part of what made Bowie's work so impactful. He was constantly evolving, always a bit ahead of the curve. Each video feels like a blueprint for the next generation of artists, showing them they can be more daring, more experimental.
I must interrupt though, Izzy. While it's true Bowie pushed boundaries, it's essential to critique the context of his innovations. Yes, he was ahead, but part of what made his multimedia endeavors so revolutionary was the way they were juxtaposed against the stark backdrop of his era's normativity. He didn't invent the concept, but he redefined it for a mainstream audience.
Lenny raises a solid point. Bowie's work has to be viewed through the lens of its cultural and temporal context to appreciate its true impact.
And yet, in doing so, don't we risk pigeonholing Bowie as merely a product of his time? His work, especially in music videos, feels as if it transcends eras. It's a testament to his visionary spirit that we're still discussing its impact and relevance.
Which, to circle back to the narratives within his videos, speaks volumes about his foresight in addressing themes of alienation, identity, and the future. These are evergreen topics that Bowie just had a knack for exploring through the fusion of music, fashion, and visuals.
Totally, Amelia. Yet that foresight doesn't absolve some of the more problematic aspects, which we should critique and learn from, not just blindly praise.
Critique is fair, Jazz, but let's also celebrate the innovation. Without Bowie, the landscape of music videos, fashion, and even discussions around identity and pop culture might be very different today.
A spirited debate indeed. It's clear Bowie's impact on music videos and multimedia is as multifaceted as his personas. We may not agree on every aspect of his work, but it's undeniable that his legacy is a rich field of study and admiration. Let's dive into the significance of Berlin on Bowie's work. His Berlin trilogy is often cited as some of his most influential. What was it about Berlin that so deeply affected his music and style?
Berlin was a city divided, both politically and culturally, during that period. It was the perfect backdrop for Bowie's own explorations of division within himself and his music. The raw energy of the city, struggling with its identity, mirrored Bowie's own artistic journey.
I partially agree with Lenny, but it's more than that. Bowie was attracted to the sci-fi element of Berlin, the wall, the Cold War tension. It felt like a dystopian backdrop that fed his fascination with futurism and narrative storytelling within his albums.
While the sci-fi and political tension provided a canvas, don't overlook how the underground music and art scene fueled his creativity. Berlin had a burgeoning avant-garde scene that Bowie immersed himself in. That's where the real influence came in. It wasn't just the politics.
Exactly, jazz. And it's crucial to mention how this period and environment allowed Bowie to explore themes of introspection and personal transformation more deeply than ever before. The isolation he felt in Berlin contributed to the introspective lyrics in the Berlin Trilogy.
All valid points, but let's not forget the visual influence Berlin had on him. The stark, minimalist aesthetic of the city at that time seeped into the album artwork and Bowie's fashion. It stripped down the excess and brought forth a more authentic Bowie.
Authentic? I'd argue Berlin revealed a new facet of Bowie, not necessarily more authentic. He was always about reinvention. Berlin was just another stage, another character in his ongoing performance.
But that's the beauty of it, Lenny. Berlin wasn't just another stage for him. It was a crucible that forged a deeper, more complex Bowie. Low, Heroes, and Lodger aren't just albums. They're Bowie bearing his soul in ways he hadn't before.
Mick, I have to interrupt. Saying Bowie bared his soul simplifies the complexity of his work during that time. Those albums were experiments in sound and collaboration. Bowie was less about bearing his soul and more about pushing musical boundaries.
Yet, those experimental sounds can be deeply personal. Bowie's work in Berlin confronted the alienation and fragmentation of the individual, something that resonates with gender and identity politics even today. It was personal, political, and musical all at once.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, we can't ignore how Berlin's fashion influenced him. Bowie's Berlin style was subdued, yet avant-garde. It reflected the city's blend of grunge and elegance. His look became as influential as his sound.
Subdued? Perhaps compared to Ziggy Stardust. But Bowie's time in Berlin was about absorbing and reflecting the culture around him. His style evolution continued, informed by the city's unique atmosphere. It wasn't just the music that was experimental.
It's clear Bowie's Berlin period was multifaceted, touching everything from music and fashion to personal and cultural exploration. The city, with all its contrasts and contradictions, was a fertile ground for Bowie's transformative years. Let's delve into Bowie's significant impact on gender norms and sexuality. Amelia, your thoughts?
Bowie was revolutionary, presenting gender fluidity and challenging sexual identity norms like no other before him. His androgyny wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a bold message about the fluidity of identity.
Exactly, Amelia. His approach to fashion broke all the rules, and that resonated beyond just music or fashion. It was about being true to oneself, even if that self didn't fit neatly into society's boxes.
I appreciate that, Izzy, but let's not gloss over how his visual presentations pushed those ideas further. His personas, like Ziggy Stardust, brought those abstract notions of gender fluidity into the living rooms of the average person.
And yet I think we sometimes over-romanticize his contribution. Yes, he pushed boundaries, but were they really his ideas, or was he repackaging underground scenes for the mainstream?
Mick, I must disagree sharply there. Repackaging? Bowie lived his art. He brought visibility to these ideas at a time when they were largely ignorable by mainstream culture. That's not just repackaging, that's bravery.
Hold on, Amelia. Mick does raise a point about authenticity. Bowie was a master of reinvention, sure, but to say he wasn't influenced by and even directly lifted from underground scenes is neglecting the nature of how culture spreads.
It's a fair debate, but it's undeniable that Bowie's impact on gender norms and sexuality is profound, regardless of the origin of his influences.
His impact goes beyond just his era. Look at how norms have shifted today. Bowie's influence is a thread in that larger conversation about gender and sexuality.
Agreed, but it's also about the artistry with which he presented these ideas. Not just anyone could do what he did. He had a unique way of communicating complex ideas about identity that made people listen.
And let's not underestimate the power of fashion in this. His looks were a radical form of self-expression that challenged audiences to rethink their own biases and assumptions.
While I concede he played a significant role, we should also credit the movements that influenced him. Bowie was a catalyst, yes, but not in isolation.
Right, Mick. Bowie stands on the shoulders of giants. But let's not underplay his role in bringing those underground currents to a broader audience. In terms of popularizing those themes, Bowie was unmatched.
It's clear Bowie had a monumental impact, on how society views gender norms and sexuality, as complex as the interaction between his influence and the broader cultural movements might be. Any final thoughts?
Just that Bowie's legacy in this area reminds us of the power of art to challenge societal norms and inspire personal liberation.
And his work continues to inspire new generations to explore and express their identities boldly and without fear.
Excellent points all around. Bowie's influence on gender norms and sexuality is as layered and multifaceted as the man himself was. Let's move on. Let's delve into Bowie's unmatched legacy in contemporary music. Mick, you've extensively researched his influence. Kick us off?
Sure, Hal. David Bowie didn't just make music, he made pioneers. Artists like Lady Gaga and Janelle Monáe cite him as a major influence, not just for his sound, but for his fearless innovation and persona.
And let's not forget fashion. His visual aesthetic is equally impactful. Bowie's influence is like a shadow cast long into the future of music and fashion. Without him, the boldness we see on stages today would be far less pronounced.
Absolutely, Izzy. His advocacy for diversity and breaking gender norms inspired not only musicians, but also encouraged a broader representation in the industry. Bowie's legacy isn't just sonic, it's deeply societal.
Can we truly chalk up diversity in today's music scene to Bowie, though? His influence is undeniable, but the landscape has evolved with or without him. Modern artists are navigating a different societal fabric entirely.
Lenny, that's a point. But you're underestimating the courage it gave artists to be their true selves, blatantly inspired by Bowie. His impact goes beyond just the notes and into the psyche of artists and listeners alike.
And regarding the future of music production, Hal Bowie was always ahead. His use of technology and narrative in albums like Outside paved the way for what we consider modern experimental music.
Indeed, Mick. Technology played a colossal role. Bowie's union of internet and music in the late 90s set a precedent for how artists engage with the world today.
Speaking of engagement, his collaborations were another layer of his genius. Working with artists across genres and mediums, Bowie showed that music is not just about sound. It's a visual, visceral experience.
True, but we can't credit Bowie with the genesis of visual music storytelling. Artists have been intertwining music and visual elements long before him.
Jazz, while that's correct, Bowie popularized and revolutionized it for the mainstream. You see, it's not about who did it first, it's who did it in a way that shifted the culture. Bowie shifted cultures.
Shifted, perhaps, but we also risk inflating his role. Every generation has its iconoclasts. Bowie stood on the shoulders of giants and became one, yet today's artists are climbing different mountains.
A fair point, Lenny. Bowie's legacy, as we've unpacked here, is multifaceted, inspiring not just through music, but his very being. His influence is etched into the DNA of contemporary artistry, whether through direct inspiration or challenging norms.
And that's precisely why his legacy can't be overstated. Whether in sci-fi themes, gender norms, or sonic innovation, Bowie's shadow looms large.
Despite our debates, one thing's clear. Bowie's impact is eternal in the veins of music, fashion, and culture. There's a bit of Bowie in every corner of modern artistry.
Well said. Bowie's work challenges, inspires, and transcends, cementing his place in the annals of history. Thank you, everyone, for a spirited discussion. Let's dive into Bowie's fascination with the future, space, and the unknown. Mick, as a science fiction author, how do you see Bowie's impact on the genre?
Bowie didn't just impact the genre, he lived it. His work, especially in albums like Space Oddity and the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, essentially set the ground for futurism in music. He was the soundtrack to the space age.
I'd push back on that a bit, Mick. Yes, he utilized the themes, but he was also questioning them. It wasn't mere fascination. It was a critical look at technology and alienation. The way he visualized these ideas in his art and music videos was revolutionary.
And let's not overlook the social and philosophical dimensions here. Bowie's use of science fiction themes challenged us to rethink identity in society. His portrayal of gender fluidity and alien characters forced a reevaluation of the other in society.
Amelia, those are good points. But it was the allure of the unknown, that made Bowie's engagement with sci-fi so compelling. It wasn't just about challenging societal norms, it was about escaping them, imagining a future where those norms no longer existed.
But let's not forget the aesthetic side of things. Bowie's visual representations of these themes were as impactful as his music. His costumes and personas brought the ideas of science fiction and futurism right into the mainstream.
I think you're all missing a crucial point. Bowie's engagement with futurism wasn't just thematic or aesthetic, it was deeply critical. He wasn't celebrating the future as much as he was warning us about it. His work is a call to be mindful of where we're headed.
Lenny, I see where you're coming from, but wasn't it also about embracing change? Bowie was always ahead, always seeking the next thing. That's not just caution, that's enthusiasm for what's next.
So we're saying Bowie was both critical of the future and enthusiastic about the possibilities.
Exactly, Hal. That dual approach is what made his work so rich and multifaceted. He didn't just present a concept, he invited us to critically engage with it.
But wasn't his real legacy in how he inspired others? Authors, artists, musicians, they all draw on Bowie's vision of the future to imagine their own. That's where his true impact lies.
Inspiring future generations, yes, but also giving them a template for questioning and exploring those inspirations. Bowie's legacy in science fiction and futurism isn't just in the themes he explored, but in the conversations he started.
Agreeing with Jazz here. Bowie's approach to futurism was not just about hope or fear. It was about using the future as a lens to examine the present. His fashion, music, and videos, they all asked us to look at our current world through the possibility of another.
Spot on, Izzy. And that's the heart of Bowie's influence. Not just the worlds he created, but the perspectives he offered on our own.
So it seems we can all agree that Bowie's engagement with science fiction and futurism was layered, both a reflection of his times and a critique of them, wrapped in a vision that continues to inspire and challenge. As we look to the future ourselves, perhaps Bowie's most enduring lesson is to approach it with the same complexity and curiosity he did. Let's dive into Bowie's incredible knack for collaborations across various disciplines. He was a bit of a chameleon, wasn't he? Working not just with musicians, but artists, designers, and even actors.
Absolutely, Hal. His collaboration with Alexander McQueen, for instance, revolutionized the way we see the intersection of fashion and music. Bowie didn't just wear clothes, he created personas through them, with McQueen's help.
That's all well and good, but I'd argue his collaborative work in music had a far deeper impact. Bowie and Brian Eno's partnership, for example, practically birthed entire new genres. Without those collaborations, we wouldn't have the Berlin Trilogy.
Mick, I hear your point, but aren't we missing the broader picture? Bowie's work with artists like Tony Orsler for his music videos was groundbreaking. He understood multimedia in ways that musicians today are still trying to catch up to.
While those are valid points, I think it's crucial to remember how his collaborations impacted social issues. Working with openly queer artists and integrating diversity into his work did more for social progress than any genre he might have helped inspire.
To Amelia's point, but let's not romanticize it too much. Yes, Bowie collaborated with diverse artists, but was it always for social progress, or was it Bowie being a shrewd marketer? Sometimes I wonder if we give too much credit without questioning the intent.
Lenny, I have to interrupt. Even if Bowie benefited from his collaborations, to suggest it was just marketing undermines the genuine impact those collaborations had. You can't deny the influence they've had on challenging norms in fashion and music.
But let's not overlook the actual science fiction collaborations. His work with Ridley Scott on the Blade Runner soundtracks, although it never materialized, showed Bowie's foresight into the blending of sci-fi and music, something that's commonplace today.
True, Mick, but Bowie's video art collaborations brought the futurist aesthetic to the mainstream, making sci-fi cool. His partnership with directors like Mark Romanek for the Jump They Say video visually narrated Bowie's fascination with futurism.
These collaborations, whatever the medium, often highlighted issues of identity, alienation, and the future. They provoked thought and invited us to question our surroundings and norms. Isn't that the hallmark of true artistry?
Amelia, you've got a point. My skepticism perhaps overlooks the layered impact of these collaborations. They weren't just revolutionary in a technical or aesthetic sense, but also in the way they invited us to see the world differently.
Indeed, Bowie's collaborations were multidimensional, affecting music, art, culture, and even society. Each of you brought valuable perspectives to this discussion, showing just how deep Bowie's influence runs. Well, as we draw this discussion to a close, I'd like to invite each of you to share your final thoughts on David Bowie's legacy and how it personally resonates with you. Amelia, would you like to start?
Certainly. Bowie's confrontation with gender norms and sexual identity has been monumental in scholarly discussions. It's pivotal, not just in music, but in how we approach gender studies. His fluidity and defiance were ahead of his time.
I see your point, Amelia, but I think his contributions to science fiction and futurism shouldn't be underplayed. His work opened a gateway to discussing larger existential and philosophical questions through pop culture. That's a rare feat.
On Mick's note, Bowie's visual artistry was revolutionary. However, focusing solely on his sci-fi themes undermines the sheer breadth of his multimedia impact. He didn't just use videos for promotional purposes, but as an extension of his art. Both valid points, but let's not overlook the fashion. Bowie was a chameleon, always evolving. His daring choices made people reconsider what fashion could be in everyday life, not just on stage. He wasn't just wearing costumes, he was making statements.
Statements that were often more reflective of his personal exploration than a concerted effort to influence fashion or sci-fi. It's important we don't mythologize Bowie. He was an artist, yes, experimental, but not always with a grand vision for societal change.
Lenny, I have to disagree. His very personhood was a grand vision of societal change. By merely being, he challenged norms and inspired countless individuals to embrace their authenticity.
Authenticity that sparked narratives in music and literature alike. His work is a treasure trove for sci-fi, not just because of the themes, but because of how he blended them with rock music, creating something entirely new.
And that's just it. His blending wasn't limited to sci-fi or fashion. His art was a melting pot, influencing not just artists but anyone who saw his work. He taught us that boundaries are, in fact, illusions. Yet, in the fashion world, those illusions he played with have become blueprints. His influence is undeniable, whether in deliberate statements or in the casual integration of his aesthetics into mainstream culture.
While his impact is unquestionable, attributing too much intention behind every one of his actions risks overshadowing the spontaneous creativity he so often displayed. Sometimes Bowie was just Bowie, without a grand socio-political plan.
It's clear Bowie meant something different to each of us, reflecting the multidimensional nature of his work. Whether it was his challenge to societal norms, his pioneering in multimedia, or his fearless exploration in fashion and music, Bowie's legacy is as diverse as it is profound. Thank you all for a stimulating discussion. His art continues to invite analysis and interpretation, ensuring his influence endures.